Hello Linux lovers, my name's Wimpy, welcome to my world. Today we're going to be taking a look at Retro Home, which is my operating system for the Raspberry Pi dedicated to retro gaming emulation. If you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, this was originally streamed live on twitch.tv/Wimpy's World. So if you would like to join in these sessions interactively with the rest of the community, hello, then please head over to twitch.tv/Wimpy's World and give us a follow. Good morning, hey Big Pod, hey King Egypt, hey Henrik, how you doing? Good to see you all again. Hello Paul, good morning, how are you? So, back to Retro Home. So we're more Raspberry Pi stuff today. So I've got a couple of updates before we sort of get into that. I suppose the first one is a little bit of a plug. So I'm podcasting again with my friend Joe Ressington. The podcast is Linux Downtime, so linuxdowntime.com. Episode 49 was out yesterday, and we were joined by Kyle Fazari again, and also Hayden Barnes, currently now at SUSE and of WSL fame, and we discussed the big issue: what exactly is a Linux distribution anyway, and what might the future of Linux distros look like? Not the desktop Linux discussion, but like Linux distributions. So have a listen to that, and then tell us what we got right and what we got wrong. So get subscribed to Linux Downtime to hear some debate. There's no Linux news. These are debate and discussion topics. So yeah, I hope that you will sort of find some enjoyment there. Hey Graham, how you doing? God, Linux Paul has got fancy tea again. I've just got bog standard English breakfast tea. Already been told I was wrong. I stand by my definition of what a Linux distribution is. Yeah, you can join the debate on the send your feedback to show@linuxdowntime.com, or in the comments of the tweets or whatever. Anyway, today we're going to be Raspberry Piing again. So Retro Home is a project I bootstrapped last year to just sort of get the foundations in place, but I never intended for what I did at around Christmas time last year to be the sort of intention for the project. I was always waiting on Ubuntu 22.04 to become available, because I wanted to build on Ubuntu 20.04 for the long term for this project. So I really want to define Ubuntu 22.04 as the platform on which this project will be sat upon for at least 2 years, maybe longer. And that's because there's a lot of different devices I want to enable, and I don't think it's going to be that much of a moving target that we have to continually shift and move forward with newer versions of Ubuntu. So I want to make this a console-style device. Good morning. A console-style device that you can put under the telly, and it will sort of update like a console device. So no sort of major breaking upgrades, just security updates. So kind of a well put together operating system just for retro emulation, but covering a number of devices, including eventually we'll get to some handheld devices, which is where I'm really interested in going with this. But there's some underlying work that needs to be done before we get there. So Linux Paul is just explaining the source of his fancy teas. So we're going to hop into that. So let's just head back in here. The project is here on GitHub. So it's on Wimpy's World /Retro-Home. And if you saw any of last week's streams about the Raspberry Pi for Ubuntu Mate 22.04, this build script is extremely similar. In fact, it was directly derived from that script that I published last week for making the Ubuntu Mate images. Although this has some nuance to it, because it's going to have some specific device support capabilities, and it needs to do some things a bit differently from the other script, and we'll get into that. I'll go through this and why it's different. But the objective today is we get this build script migrated to Ubuntu 22.04, and hopefully by the end of today's stream, we at least have an image that boots and works in air quotes. So we'll just try and get like everything uplifted to 20.04 and basically working. And then from there, I'm going to make sort of a couple of to-do list items, which we'll try and burn down over the remainder of this week, in order that by the end of the week, we probably have something that represents a good sort of stable place in which to build on in the future.
Smiley face.
Thanks, Big Bob. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much. I do like the way the TTS says smiley face. So, in terms of where we want to get to, there's lots of devices to enable. These are basically cases in this case. They are cases that you put Raspberry Pis inside. Retro Home is a single architecture, and I'm going to keep it that way for as long as it's feasible to do so. So therefore it's ARM HF, which is 32-bit ARM. I kind of made that decision based on Ludo, which is what we're using as our front end, and also RetroArch, which are only publishing ARM HF binaries. I could build out a PPA and support 32-bit and 64-bit ARM. I've decided to not do that because the lowest common denominator of all of the devices or the cases that I want to support, and therefore the types of Raspberry Pi that go inside them, is 32-bit ARM. So I'd like to keep it as simple as possible and have a single architecture stack to target, rather than having multiple architectures for, you know, different use cases. I don't think we're going to run into any performance bottlenecks as a result of doing that, but we can evaluate that over time and adapt as necessary. So, hey Diego, how you doing? Hey, Athiel, I remember your name. I remember some of these being difficult to pronounce, but welcome back to the stream. So let's just, I've had a terminal up here, so let's just go here. Yeah, I've cleared that. So let's bring up the script. I'm just going to scroll to the bottom of the script. I got to this point here where it's like the other build script where there are stages, and so far I've done the bootstrap, the Ludo bit, and the micro desktop. I'll refresh your memory as to what the micro desktop is. So I'm going to kick off this piece to bring in the kernel into our image build, so that we can have that running in the background whilst I run through the script and what it's doing and why it's the way it is and why it's a little different from the other one. So let's just do this, and this will, in fact, let's just make sure I've saved that. There we go. So we'll just run this piece of the build, and that will do the next stage, and we'll just let that whirl whilst we go and take a look at this build script. So at the top here, I've got some to-dos. I'm going to move these out into GitHub projects and things like that. I think I said last week I'm going to try and up my game with use of GitHub and things, and in fact over the weekend I've organized my life and I'll using Todoist, which I've had around for a while but haven't been using properly, and I've now tried to structure everything that I'm working on in there to make sure I don't forget things. But I want to get all of this sort of stuff into GitHub projects to better manage like each of the individual projects and like to-dos and issues and things of that nature. So unlike the other build script for Ubuntu Mate, which is a generic image for Raspberry Pi, this will eventually be able to target these different cases that you can put a Raspberry Pi in, including some fairly sophisticated like miniature arcade cabinets and like the monster joystick controller, which is also got its own wiring loom and GPIO headers and what have you, hats. So this will eventually be able to add the necessary hat and header support for the different devices, some handheld, and like I say, some more sophisticated devices. This is anything other than the generic Raspberry image is embryonic at the moment, so this is where the lion's share of the work will be in subsequent weeks. This is the same helper function that just moves cache layers to cache layers. This again is almost identical to the nspawn helper in the other script, which is the thing that builds the image inside a systemd container. And then we have a number of bootstrap layers. Oh, sorry, I see there's some comments here. What's going on here then? That does sound fantastic. Hang on a minute. I'm just... Twitch is lagging. Okay. I can't do anything about that, I don't think. I'm looking at my metrics. Everything tells me it's fine in terms of what I can coerce. I'm sorry if that's a problem for you. Oh, the Twitch servers are struggling, are they? Okay. Again, I can't influence that, I'm afraid. Right then. Let's have a look. So I'm just making sure. Good. Hey Zeb, how you doing? Good to see you again. Okay, Zeb says it's fine in the UK. Yeah, if Twitch is playing up for you, I'm sorry, I can't help with that. I hope it would sort itself out if I just look. Maybe switch to one of the transcoders and like choose 720p. That may help if the transcoding is available in your region. I don't get that guaranteed because I'm affiliate, not partner. Anyway, this function here, the bootstrapping function, is very, very similar to the one in the other script. Again, it will use apt-cacher-ng if it's installed locally. Some of the things we do a little bit differently here is just exclude a couple of packages. Netplan, we're excluding Netplan here because Ludo, which is the front end to the RetroArch emulation cores, or libretro emulation cores, uses Conman as the network manager. So we're trying to disable like the defaults in Ubuntu which don't apply. So we're deliberately excluding Netplan here. And we also try and work around an issue with the different utilities that can do the file system growth. And this is just a little bit of shenanigans in the bootstrapping process to ensure that we get the packages that we want seeded in the base image, but not the packages that we're uninterested in. So and then we install these things here. So we need the Avahi daemon because that's critical for the way that Ludo works, and this cloud initial RAM disk file system grow root is the facility that in the early boot stage actually expands the file system of, if you've put it on an SD card or a USB stick or an SSD, automatically grows the file system into the full capacity of your storage device without having to reboot and all the rest of it. So, okay, everyone's confirming it's not my fault. That's good. Twitch is struggling apparently. And then we install just the what's called the standard task, which is like the minimal Ubuntu user space. So what you would expect to find in a trimmed down Ubuntu server install. Essentially, it's a bit of an oversimplification. Then the next stage is simply called Ludo. Ludo being the front end that we need, that we use. And so we installed a bunch of X11 stuff and OpenGL and GLES and all of that good stuff. Then we get the XDG utilities without recommended packages, again to keep the size of this image down. And then we bring in LightDM and Slick Greeter, so we're using that as our display manager. And I'm using Slick Greeter because it's based on LightDM, which is well supported at this point, and LightDM has a whole bunch of capabilities integrated and doesn't require For example, like the Ayatana indicators and a whole bunch of additional stuff that needs configuring. And then for Ludo itself, it can manage Bluetooth, network via Conman. Conman's like a lightweight network manager equivalent. Faye is a splash screen manager, and SSH is obviously SSH daemon and associated services. And then also we bring in a minimal Samba install, and that's because Ludo can also manage Samba connections for you can put ROMs onto the device over Samba, Windows networking. And then here we go out and grab the current version of the deb published in the GitHub project of Ludo and install it. And in fact, we're going to see a little bit of who's this? A big pod. Setting up fireballs. So this bit here, I eventually intend to replace by embedding debget inside of RetroHome, so we can use debget to seed the current version of Ludo, but then there will be a mechanism on the device in order to update Ludo as well. So at some point we'll replace this out with debget. Then we have this micro desktop stage. And this is at the moment, it started out life as sort of a developer aid for me, so that once I've made the image, I can go into a miniature desktop environment, and I've got a terminal and a text editor and enough stuff that I can poke around and sort of live change things and figure out what maybe configuration changes I want to make in like the default build processes. Now, as it happens, for those devices that are like basically not the handheld devices, having a desktop available as a thing that you can log into is quite handy for putting ROMs on the device. For example, if you do not have any other computer, like my niece, she can use this micro desktop in order to actually download ROMs and put them on the device as well. So this is going to stick around as a feature of the not handheld versions of RetroHome, and I will build out its capabilities slightly and improve its look and feel a little bit. So this is something we'll give a little bit of love over the course of this week, and something that I would like to do, and again we'll switch out with debget, is bringing in the Vivaldi browser, in that is I think a good compromise in terms of compatibility and performance on ARM-HF, and potentially bringing in Widevine so that you could watch Netflix, for example, on this device as well. So these are potential enhancements for the future on the micro desktop stuff. So we'll see how we go there. Then we have a kernel stage, which is links to the wrong Twitch channel. Oh, goodness me. Does it really? Master Noob says Let me go and check this. That's terribly embarrassing. Did I send it to the work channel? So they say your tweet links to the wrong channel. Yeah, I linked to work. Oh, man. This is... yeah. Okay, well, there you go. You're dead right. I'm just looking there. Thank you. I'm an idiot. Yeah, so I also stream on Slim Devils as well. So does Big Pod, who's one of my colleagues. So that's the work channel. So yeah, by all means, get followed over there. We do interesting stuff over there too. Sorry about that. That wasn't a deliberate ploy. I can't believe it. Okay, well, thank you for pointing that out. I will try and focus my attention on getting that right in the future. Terribly sorry. Yeah, actually, Linux Paul's got it right. It's time for more tea. So, Then we get onto the kernel stage, and this is done a little bit differently. I'm trying to set up Retro Home in such a way that the additional configuration and what have you that it needs to drop in can be, where applicable, managed through deb packages. So I've started to break that out. So let me give you an example of what I mean here. If I do tree root, I have, this is a bunch of configuration files that get dropped into the root file system by the build script, but eventually most of this will be packaged up as deb in a deb package, so that not only can it be built initially, but if there's any of these configuration files need to change because there's bugs or whatever, then an update can be published and the package can update these configuration files. At the moment I'm not doing that because we're still at the getting the whole thing bootstrapped and working, but this is this will eventually be replaced with a deb that installs these things appropriately. And I also have a boot directory. I didn't mean to do that. I do have a boot directory, and at the moment this has just got like bootloader stuff in it. Now this stuff we can't distribute as a deb because this is effectively going into a fat partition, which we can't effectively manage. But none of these things actually like change over time, so these should be things that we can inject into the initial image and should be static for the lifetime of the of that build of the project. So King Egypt says they'd like to understand deb packaging more. So I do go over deb packaging here from time to time. I will package this stuff, and when I get to it, it will be quite a simple deb package actually, so it shouldn't be too complicated. Not a great example of deb packaging because it will be, because of what needs packaging, it can be done in a very, very simple way. But I can introduce the concepts of the files that are most common that you need to update. So that would be the Debian rules file, the Debian control file, the Debian changelog file, and to some extent the copyright file. And I can explain those 4 files and what they're used for, and you'll see an actual example of that. And then there's things called install files, which we'll use for this, which dictate which files go where when they get installed on the operating system. But I can cover that in a future stream for sure. Paul says he'd like to understand many things later. Yeah, well, yeah, life generally, yeah, it's tricky. So at some point we'll factor these in, and I'm not sure if Takov has joined us yet. Oh yeah, hey Takov, you have joined. Hey there, how you doing? I know Takov has started looking at some of this stuff here, so I've been looking at some of the device tree overlays for some of the devices, sorry, the cases that I want to support. And you'll see up here we've got some initial Python files here. Let's just, if we just code root user local bin, that one. This is a very simple GPIO 0 based, let's call it a driver in air quotes, for monitoring the different buttons that are on this particular case in order to determine whether we've elected to shut the device down or do a reset and those sorts of things. So it basically looks at the appropriate GPIO pins and then determines what action it should take. And most of these cases implement something like this, but in a slightly different way. And I think Takov's interested in helping with this. These are my initial ports to GPIO 0, something that we now have to support because we're using a kernel newer than 5.11. And we're covering some of these GPIO drivers in future streams, and any help in perfecting and improving those would be greatly appreciated. And they'll get more complex as well as we get to things like the Picade and the monster joystick. They will be far more than just 2 pins that we need to look at. They'll be fairly comprehensive drivers, I think. Or hopefully, maybe I've waited just long enough that we don't have to write them because somebody else will have ported them to GPIO 0. We will see. So we've got this whole kernel install process going on, and just like the Raspberry Pi images for Ubuntu Mate, we're using the ZSwap for swap. And what I have done since I did the stream about Ubuntu Mate on Raspberry Pi is Dave Jones confirmed in that. Dave Jones is the Raspberry Pi guy at Canonical. He confirmed that using the systemd units to bring up swap did in fact work correctly, and I've enabled that now in the build images for Ubuntu Mate 22.04. Those images are in final testing. Hopefully I'll get those released in the next day or two. So what I've done is I've folded in the same mechanism here. So we enable ZSwap with LZ4 and Z3 fold, and then we use systemd services to enable this, although I haven't actually tested whether this mechanism works yet, so we'll try that out in a little bit. Then we install all of the necessary kernel related stuff for the Raspberry Pi enablement, and then do all the usual things that are necessary in order to shuffle those device trees around and what have you, and make the bootloader bootable. Then we have a config stage. I've commented these bits out because I don't think these are required anymore, so we should be able to delete those for 22.04, and that's because we now have this package here that gets installed that effectively does these things for us now. So this package does all the good stuff, and therefore we shouldn't need any of that anymore. And then we enable the first run boot wizard, and then because this project, unlike the Ubuntu Mate project, is very much like an unofficial thing, I'm disabling a whole bunch of stuff that integrates with Canonical's infrastructure for things like reporting crashes and things of that nature, because there's no point in telling the Ubuntu bug infrastructure about bugs in this project, because it is not supported through the Ubuntu project. So also this turns off a bunch of services and brings the operating overhead of this down, and the whole time I'm building these images is, regardless whether this image is destined for a desktop case, let's call it a set-top case, or a handheld case, I'm trying to keep the requirements as trim as possible at all times. So I'm trying to disable as much of the unnecessary features as possible. Then we do a little thing here which says if we've installed Ludo, because in some cases, there are some projects I have in mind where I don't wish to use Ludo at all. Now, I haven't added the other platform support in here yet, but when we're building with Ludo, which will be most of the time, we enable these systemd units, and these are the units that enable Ludo to manage whether SSH is enabled, whether Samba is on or off, and whether Bluetooth is enabled. So then we do some systemd configuration, because again, we want this device to always use conman to manage the network, not systemd network D, not netplan, not network manager. So we're making sure that we're only using conman for all network related stuff. We copy in a Ludo configuration file. In fact, let's just remind myself what's in there, because I actually can't remember. So let's take a look. So this just turns on full screen, tells it where various things are. That's fine. So the paths to where things. And by default, we have Bluetooth, Samba and SSHD enabled by default. That's fine. Then we have a default Samba configuration, which we could also look at. This is a bit more comprehensive. And again, the advantage of installing this via a deb is we can do a proper diversion on the package, and that will stop this being overwritten by upgrades to the Samba package. So this tells Samba what all of the places are you can access in order to access the playlists, but most importantly, the one that people will be most interested in is this one here, the path to the ROMs, so you can, over Samba, drop new ROMs onto the device, which works well over Ethernet, but due to the limitations of the Raspberry Pi Wi-Fi, it's pretty terrible doing that over Wi-Fi. So it sets up some of the bits for Ludo, default configuration paths, drop some bits and bobs in, and more directories being created, permissions being set. So everything that Ludo gives you access to is under /storage on the root partition, but of course you could mount that to any other flashable storage. So King Egypt says, don't comment out, delete it. I'm only going to delete it once I've verified I don't actually need it, because I'm not 100% certain, which is why it's commented out at the moment. And none of this is committed, so hopefully by the end of today this will all be tested and I can, clean it up and commit it and have a version in the source tree that's ready for 22.04. Okay, there we go. Oh, hello, what's this? So, Takov says, as I probably mentioned, Pi Station LCD has HDMI connected, so it probably just needs the resolution setting. I think the way that the default bootloader works, it should do the right thing over HDMI. It should talk to the display and negotiate a correct resolution based on the EDID of the corrected display. I don't think we'll need to tell Ludo to do anything specific in terms of resolution until we get to those handheld devices that are funky, have got really unusual resolutions. And again, some of those unusual resolutions is why the desktop there makes no sense at all, because they're like, 480 by 320. Right then. So this is, we're getting into pretty stuff now. So making icons and things that get slapped about places to give the project some branding. Again, eventually all of this will be moved into an artwork package. It won't need to be, all of this stuff. And this here, I think, is where we'll make some changes, if not today, then at some point in this week, to use the new Yaru themes. One of the benefits of me working on the Yaru themes for Ubuntu Mate for 22.04 is that I landed support for panel icons in Yaru, and I think we'll be able to reuse that work in Retro Home. So, it's work on Yaru and then Karma when you want to then brand this thing. So we'll probably use one of the color derivatives of Yaru, maybe the pink one, and then we'll be able to use the new Yaru panel icons and the new Yaru GTK theme, and hopefully get a much more consistent, modern looking UI on that micro desktop. So again, this is at this point we're just doing stuff, and then here we've got the basic session configuration. So This will definitely need work at some point. This is mega jank at the moment. This is a real basic session bring up. So there's all sorts of dirty hacks in here, and it's serviceable, but it needs work. So this is doing, you know, the basically starting Ludo itself, and knowing how to just start Ludo, whether it's from a session or as just the app on its own through the micro desktop. So this needs work, but it's okay for now. Then we've got the light DM configuration, that's fine. Then we've got our own panel layout, which is, so we're using Gnome Flashback for the UI. So not a traditional Gnome shell and not the Mate desktop, but the classic desktop as provided through the Gnome Flashback project. And then again, we turn off some stuff that we're not interested in that's just going to burn up I/O performance and slow the device down. So we're turning off all the tracker capabilities and, you know, dropping in some configuration. And again, all of this will be tidied up into packaging. And then we do have some primitive contexts, or conditionals rather, for some of the cases that I would like to support. And I can't remember how well implemented any of these are, but over the course of the next couple of weeks we can test some of this and see which of these are ready to go. And then we have a little service here which is a way to it's a composition design pattern to enable the case support based on the case that we're building for. Then we've got a standard clean up everything and make it ready for use, and then generate an actual image. So it's very similar at that point. And then we've got this is wrong. That says compress and hash, and I'm pretty sure down here just says compress. Okay, so if I go back to the terminal, whilst I was talking through that, this should have run, and it does indeed look like that has run to completion. So we can move on to the next step here and do the config step and see how that goes. Oops. Let's do that, do the configuration step. And oh, hang on a minute, I didn't save it, did I? Are you Wally? Yeah, Wally. So when this finishes, I'll have to, this is doing the kernel stage again because I neglected to hit the save button, but oh well. So whilst that's running, let's have a look. Let's have a look. I see that Takov there we go. So Takov says, oh, and what I figured out with evdev is that we could invoke the button on press evdev set push down function. Then okay. I understand what you're saying there. I'm just trying to think if there's any benefit to that other than just having a GPIO driver, but we can discuss that in Discord and figure out like how we're gonna tackle this. So for buttons, it seems easier. Okay. Analog joystick is the real trouble. What do you mean for analog joystick? Because that's a whole topic. I'm not going... I don't want to get into that too much today, but the joystick topic is there's a sort of a joystick database, and I've got lots of these different devices, and I think I'm going to have to figure out how to actually submit the controller profiles to I think it's the SDL controller database or something like that. I've got some notes buried somewhere in this project about what needs doing there, but yeah, we need to do something about controller support. And interestingly, we could probably do it for Linux, Windows and Mac OS using QuickEmu. Right, okay. So King Egypt says, sorry, I must have missed that. Why do you use Gnome Flashback? Because I wanted to ship as minimal as possible desktop environment. So not a complete desktop environment, just the basic apps that you need to like manage the device. And I could have done it with Mate Desktop, of course, but I wanted to learn something new and do it in a different way. And also I've got one eye on Wayland for the future, because if Ludo starts supporting Wayland, which is on the cards, then it would be nice to have a platform that actually supports Wayland, and GNOME Flashback does. So there's a little bit of forward thinking in terms of, you know, how to do this. And I think something else I might need to do here is I could, in fact, I'm going to add it to the notes now, because I've now thought of it as a good idea. So what we'll do is we'll just save this file here, and then we'll start the build going with the configuration step, and now we'll come back here and we will change this to enable pipewire. So it is possible to enable a complete pipewire stack in 22.04, and I'm tempted to do that on this project, because why not? In the same way that I'm thinking of switching the default file system to F2FS, this is an interesting project where you know, I can get to do things a little bit differently and learn from the process. Maybe this doesn't work for us, but we can at least try it and find out. So oh, I see. So you're suggesting we can just press keyboard keys for what? The various power state things, which can be mapped to the default key. Oh, I see. Right, I understand. Except, so here's the except. Almost no time whatsoever will this have a keyboard attached to it. So let me explain. If you've got one of these under the telly, and you've got your controllers in here and your HDMI and power out the back, the idea is that you don't have a keyboard attached to this, that it's just a console. So I think catering for the expectation that a keyboard is attached isn't something that we should do. I think we should cater for you're using it like a console with the buttons that are on the case, which don't map to, you know, keyboard inputs. Or unless you're saying we do map these to keep the keyboard inputs. I'm happy to have the conversation and make sure I understand what you're driving at properly. Yeah, well, we can do everything's up for grabs. I'm not going to veto anything. I'm interested in figuring out all of this stuff and doing as good a job as possible. So let's go back to here. So the config step has now run. So let's go back to this script, and we'll do the clean and create an image step both together. We don't need to do the compression though. So let's did I save it this time? Let's just make doubly certain we did. Yes, saved. Okay, let's do that. So at this point we should get an image out the other side of it, and I would say there is a 60% chance this thing boots. Just a 60% chance. So if I just go into Git Kraken, there's a whole bunch of stuff that is unstaged. So there's a new command line text for this, which is adapted to 22.04. There's a new bootloader config file, which is adapted to 22.04. I don't know why those have been changed. That must be languishing from months ago. There's a bunch of changes in the build script itself, so we'll tidy up and commit those discreetly once we're satisfied that this thing's working. There's a change to the fstab config, and then we've added these additional bits. Added these initial bits to enable the swap file via systemd. So Takov says, okay, fdes has a great gamepad function, so it'll be a beefy script reusable. Okay, cool. Like I say, I want to do the best that we can do, and I think now's a good time to be working on something like this, because the other like emulation console projects I think are they haven't changed very much for a long time, and I think it'll be good to move things forward with this is like a games console operating system, and not like it's a Raspberry Pi that looks like an old games machine. Yeah, okay, well, I think these things are fun as well, so hopefully we'll all learn together and it'll improve. Right, let's flip back here. How are we doing? Right, we've got our image, so let's give this a go. I've got my SD card and this here, so we'll stick that image we've just prepared on the SD card and see if anything good happens. So in here I should have here it is, Alpha 1. What? So place your bets. Do you think this thing's going to boot? We'll stick that on there and restore it. So this should take but a minute to stick it on the SD card, but I wonder if this is going to work. I'm just trying to think of what I may have forgotten in the migration to 22.04. We've updated the kernel packages because those some of the names in those changed. Updated the little reorganized the device tree based on that name change. We've updated the bootloader configuration files. And I think it should be, the only thing that may be completely busted is the way that the initial bootstrapping happens, and some of the packages that we exclude in that mechanism may no longer be that way in 22.04 because I haven't tested it, so it could be fundamentally busted, but we'll find out in just a second. So I'm going to turn on my keyboard and mouse here, so that's done. We'll get rid of that. So let's go to the open view. So this is the wireless mouse that's connected to the Pi. The Raspberry Pi itself is this one, and we've got this wireless keyboard as well. That's all hooked up to the back of the Pi. So we'll take the SD card out, shove that in the front here. We'll then turn it on and then flip over to the capture view and see what happens. Okay, well that's encouraging. That's at least the bootloader doing something. So let's see if we get beyond this. Okay. I don't think I've got any splash screens, so we may just get text at this point here. Good morning, Tyler. How are you doing? Okay, so something's happening. I saw the message about grow root, so that's also good. That means that the early. Oh wow! Okay, this is so far. It's 2/3 of the way through the process now. So the next thing is whether or not the actual Ludo user interface comes up, and that may not, because the other thing I've changed is the change to the full KMS driver and I've no idea if Ludo will support that. So we'll see how we go. The fact that it says no signal is concerning. Bother. Okay. So something hasn't worked. Let's just have a look. We've got a few things here. So Big Pod says, throwback to Linux downtime yesterday. When will you be adding VMs to the retro home Xbox style? Not anytime soon. Not unless it's on a PC. So,
Thank you for the follow. It's Medellano.
it's me, Delano, is that? Hello, welcome to the stream. Thanks very much for the follow. I appreciate that. So, hey Esme, how you doing? So, what we're going to do about this. So I think what we'll do is we'll come over here. We'll run netdiscover. And that should tell me the IP address of this Raspberry Pi. I think its default is Ludo. I've no idea if this is going to work either. Okay, are you sure? Yes. Okay. Okay, well, that's all good. So, some stuff is working. It's been able to bring up the device and the networking. I may have mentioned I've got this slightly funky network configuration. I've got a crossover cable going from the Pi into the back of the PC and using network masquerading in order for the Pi to get on the network. So it should be able to see the internet, which it can. So where did we get to? Let's have a look. So this is the processes on the device, and I can't see. I'm just looking to see.
Thank you for the follow, SRTV9.
Thanks for the follow, SRTV9, and welcome to the stream. So we've got a Raspberry Pi that has got to here. It did bring up the display manager, and then we lost everything. So I'm now looking on the device. So I've SSH'd into the Pi, and this is a brand new image that I've just built. Here we go. So it did his light DM, and it is indeed running Retro Home here, and that Retro Home script has run this. But then the capture card can't see it. So I've got an idea. Let's do I wonder if we can do something with XR&R here. This is running under the root user. Okay. So can I yes, I can. Okay, so I can. Okay, good. Okay, so I've got sudo access from here. So let's do that, and let's do let's think. What I'm thinking is I may be able to coerce the display in some way. Can't open. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. How else can I try and do this? Oh, I know. Let's go back here. Let's just try pressing escape on the keyboard. Does that actually... That should terminate the whole thing. Or I could... Let's go here. So I'm just trying to get enough information to figure out what didn't work in this process here. So if we do that, that's the SSH session. Here's Ludo. So if we kill this process, let's kill them backwards from there to here. Okay, that's not, yeah, that's fine. So now let's go here. Aha, there we go. So what I was just doing there is I was killing the processes that were started by the display manager, which then causes the display manager to come back to its you know, to the login prompt. So let's see if we can. So I've noticed a couple of things that aren't right about this already. The first is there should be multiple sessions available here, and there is not. So, and none of this has got any theming. So something's not right here. Let's restart and see how it goes. So there's no errors in the startup. In fact, we'll bring up the debug output as the device comes up this time. See if we can see. So once the frame buffer initializes, we'll see if we can bring up the debug output on that. Here we go. Oh, because I haven't got Plymouth, so I can't do this. Bother. Okay. So actually adding Plymouth in is something I need to think about. So I think what we're seeing here is this. I think that's my little script that starts it up to display this image, and it's when Ludo runs that it actually jams up. So I've got a feeling that this is outputting a resolution that the capture card doesn't like. The capture device I'm using. So how can I prove that? Not very easily, other than maybe coercing the little script. So let's just log back into hang on to make sure I'm using the right keyboard. This gets horribly confusing when you've got two keyboards in front of you. So log back into the device. So the Retro Home is configured with a static username and password at the time being, and it's Ludo is the username and Retro is the password. This will get changed in due course. So let me just look something up very quickly over here. Right then, let's do this. Let's sudo -s-h. So we're becoming the root user and we are in the right place. Let's do for display equals 0.0. Can't open. Okay, let's see what's going on over here. Let's see. it does look like it's actually not finding an appropriate resolution through the capture device. Here we go. We can only handle... So yes, it is actually failing. I'll tell you what we'll try. We'll try disabling the full KMS driver and see if that makes any magical differences. That isn't what I want the long-term solution to be, but maybe that may get us beyond this. So let's try that. Let's do boot config. No, boot firmware. And change this to FKMS. And we'll do sudo reboot of the Pi and go back to the capture. Let's see if this hey Ian, how you doing? Welcome back. Slightly different username from what I'm used to seeing, but good to see you here all the same. So we'll just see if this comes up with the... Why is this taking so long? Let's... We definitely got disconnected. Okay, let's hard this off and turn it back on again. Let's see if it'll come up now. Okay, let's see. It's possible that this may present slightly different timings to the capture card and it will be happier. But this is something I'm going to have to figure out because we've had sort of compatibility issues with capture excuse me, with capture devices, and I really want to overcome that. So this is fine. So this is the display manager handing off, but it's once Ludo starts running that it gets in a pickle. Is it going to work this time? Ah, there we go. Okay, there's interesting, and I can see the issue here. So this is the wrong resolution, but it works. Okay, so that's a temporary workaround at least. Okay, in which case I'm going to say we'll make that change temporarily to ensure that we can actually bring up a working system, and I'll have to dig into why. So let's go and have a look. We need to edit the boot and configuration, and we'll change this to FKMS, and then we'll change this to fake.
Thank you for the follow ascertainment.
Thank you very much for the follow and welcome to the stream. Right then, so this information is now incorrect. This is the fake KMS. So that is a workaround. It's not a solution, but it will get us there. So we need to get full KMS driver working. Okay, so that's good. Now we'll head back to the capture view, and we will exit out of the emulator. How do I do this? Is it X? Yeah, there we go. Shut down. Or can I just... There we go. So this should drop me back into the display manager. Not all the sessions are listed here for some reason. So I can see that so we should have that micro desktop, and it's not in there. So I'm going to need to... Oh, doesn't even... Failed to start the session. Okay, so clearly some things have changed. So there's some work. There's some work that needs doing here in order to make that, because I'm going to need that micro desktop environment functioning. So let's just go and check that those components are all there. So we can do that by coming back here. We're no longer SSH. So SSH back into the Pi. Yep, all of the bits that I would expect to be there are there. So, okay. Let's just see if that is available. It is. And that Metacity is installed, which it is. Okay. So, Big Calm asks a question. Nothing's off topic particularly. So, they say, not sure if it's off topic. Do you recommend using particular RPi version 2, 3 or 4, A and B? And min recommended RAM. I recommend using the Raspberry Pi that is capable for doing what you want to do and the lowest cost variant. So I've got Raspberry Pis from across, you know, the lifetime of those devices being available. For my development machines, I've got two of these setups here. One like this at home and here. It's a Raspberry Pi 4 with 8 gig. It's got the SD card and the USB and also an SSD, so I can test all like variations of storage on it. That's obviously quite a spendy option because you need the Pi 4 and it's the Desk Pi Pro case. But for development or just a inconspicuous stick it under the telly device, it's a really nice way to go. It's got good cooling. It's really well engineered. But for these things, like I think this is a Raspberry Pi 2 inside this case, because that's all it needs to emulate. Because this is a NES case, so this is only ever going to be a NES emulator. So this is a Pi 2. So I am using all of them, and some of these devices I'll get to as we work out these issues. As I'm uplifting the version here, we'll get to doing handheld devices which are using Raspberry Pi Zero as well, and even the compute module. So I say pick the appropriate thing at the right price for what you want to do. So any Raspberry Pi will do, but for emulation, for the old 8-bit stuff, a Pi 2 is probably enough for most of the classic games. Certainly for them from the 8-bit era. And easier to cool as well, because the Pi 4 can get a bit toasty. Right then, so let's just have a little think about this. We've somehow, so everything that we need is installed here, but for whatever reason it didn't bring it up in the display manager. Yeah, I hear that the Pis are in short supply these days. I haven't looked myself recently, but that is what I'm hearing. So let's take a look here and, oops, hello. Let's go and have a look at the micro desktop piece. So we install all of that. We don't do any of that. So hang on, where's the... Oh, that's something worth checking. Let's go and see if the swap file's enabled. Nope, not even that's enabled. So, oops. So the swap file was created. but not mounted apparently. That's curious. Oh. Let's have a little look at the... So... Just seeing if I can spot anything in here that's going to give me a unknown kernel option parameters will be passed to user space. Okay, yes, I think so. Interesting that the full KMS driver didn't work. I wonder why that is. Something odd going on there. Oh, hello. So these are... Okay, they're the... Probably could disable some of that. Oh, this is good. So that has detected that we're trying to enable Z-swap at least. Okay, good. Okay, that's the other thing we should just check, is that the grow file system thing did work as well. It looks like it did. Indeed. Oh, hello. What's that? Quality is unknown. You have been warned. I have been warned. Video call shared memory driver. Yeah, that's not what we want. Ideally, we've had to do that to get it to come up at least some. That's fine. The quality is unknown. Okay. I'm going to have to dig into why that doesn't come up. Maybe it's an ARM-HF thing. Huh, I'll have to test that. I'll have to test that. See if it comes up with the full KMS driver on ARM64 only. I never tested that on 22.04. So... I'm not seeing anything obviously wrong there. So why isn't the display manager detecting it? Why is it not seeing those sessions? We don't care about the compis session, and that shouldn't be there, the compis piece. Oop. So let's see, that should be, oh, it is there, but it shouldn't be any compis right now. Okay, so that wouldn't find that, but this one's definitely correct. So this logs you into Gnome Flashback, so it will launch that as the session. Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. Which is there, but it will only present it if Metacity is on the system, which it is. Because of this try exec means only display the content of these desktop entries if this thing is available. And it is. So why is that not working? Okay. No, that's all fine. Okay. So, yeah, okay. Well, let's try... So, this here is getting this far. The device is coming up and it's doing this. When we see that splash screen with the wallpaper, the grey wallpaper with the Retro Home logo, it has got this far, which means that all of this worked. Setting the root window and cleaning up after the display manager, none of this broke anything, and it's only when we launch Ludo itself that we run into a problem. So let's do this. I don't think this logging actually worked, I seem to remember from the past, but let's have a little look, see if there's anything in this log here. No. Typical. So let's have a little look. We've got a couple of questions here. So do you need to specify paths, path evaluated at runtime? So yes, the display manager does have the common paths available, which is why when you look at this one, for example, this is the one that we're expecting to be displayed. You do have to specify this because libexec is not in the path. So that's why there's a full path specified in the exec line. But anything that's in the system paths, so, you know, user bin, /bin, and I think these days user sbin and /sbin are also evaluated in the default path. It will find that. But I tell you what, let's try your theory. Let's try your theory. Because we could be wrong. I could be wrong about that. So let's provide the full path here. And we'll do that. And we'll go back to the capture screen. Mind you, this is worrying as well. The fact that it couldn't actually... Oh, I wonder if it's... Yeah, you know what it could be? You know I said I'd comment out that stuff. I'm going to try your thing first, but then I've got something else here that we'll go back to. So if we just do quit and restart. So we'll just see if we're able to make that metacity thing appear by coercing that path. So we'll just try your idea there. I'm wondering if the reason why the full KMS driver didn't come up is because I removed some stuff from the build script, which I said I don't think this is needed anymore. I could have well be wrong about that, and maybe some of those things are indeed still required. We'll have a little look at that in just a moment. But we'll try your thing first. We'll let this log in, and then we'll exit the emulator, and it should drop us back again at the display manager. What I want to see is an alternate session to log into, which is the Gnome Flashback session. So this is fine. We'll drop out. No, it's still not listed. So nice idea. We've tried it, but that wasn't it. So let's try doing this, which will require us rebuilding part of the image. So I was suggesting that where was it? In the config step, I think, wasn't it? I said I don't think we need to do this anymore, but you know what? Let's leave those bits in. And we'll rebuild from, I think this was the config step, right? Ugh. I don't think this is going to fix the session not being there, though. I mean, it absolutely isn't going to fix the session not being there. I'm utterly flummoxed as to why that is like a well-known thing. Why is that not working? But also, it's not working. It's not letting me into the Stop letting me into Ludo when I manually log in either, so something's really busted there. So let's rebuild this from the config stage upwards, which thankfully is that one, so it's not very much. So let's move over here. Rebuild from that stage there. And we'll hard power I. Yank its card out, and we'll get ready to reflash this card with this new image when it's built in just a moment.
Thank you for the follow. It's _me_big calm.
Thanks very much, Big Calm. Right then, so that image is built.
Thank you for the follow, Plagued Firmware.
Oh, Plague Firmware, I like the username. Welcome to the stream. So, let's see. We'll go to the build directory. This is the refreshed image of now. So we'll say, stick that out on the card. And then we'll try booting off this. So I've got a few things I need to take away and take a look at. So one is, why the heck is swap not working? I think I know what's going on there. I think the way that the swap is being enabled isn't comprehensive enough in the build script, because I suspect one of the target directories for systemd is missing. So I think maybe that directory needs creating before that systemd unit is enabled, which I suspect may be the problem there. This display manager thing has really got me confused though. I mean, the X session files are well understood. Why would it decide to just not see that anymore? I'm very, very confused by that. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, I'm really not sure what that one can be. So let's see if any of this adding these additional groups to the default account helps. And we'll move back to the capture device. We'll turn this on. So I didn't check whether the file system had expanded by default, but I think it has. So we will check that, because it'll be good to sort of have a list of things that did work. We know like SSH was brought up successfully, because at least I'm able to get on the damn thing, even though we had some difficulty with the display manager coming up the first time round. Wonder what that display manager thing is. That's really bugging me. Why would the display manager not be able to see those session files, or why would it not invoke them? I will have to give this some thought. Could try changing the implementation of the greeter just to check that that's not where the bug is. Oh, hang on. Now I need to SSH back in, don't I? Because in actual fact we haven't got the kernel change, which has got that different driver. So let's go and deal with this. So we need to drop the key and come in again. Right. So let's edit the bootloader configuration. And change this to FKMS and reboot. Let's do this. No swap enabled. Let's look at the free space. And okay, that is so the disk expansion stuff is working fine. So that's rebooting the Pi, hopefully. So let's look here. So that should have changed. That should change the KMS driver. And this didn't reboot, actually, curiously, last time I did this. It's not doing it again either now, is it? Okay. It's clearly some stuff not right here. Which is odd, because a lot of this is based on the 22.04 images for Ubuntu Mate, and that's working just fine. So we'll let this come up. We'll see what the display manager does. I wonder how else. Oh, we have to bring up. Yeah, that's right. So, right. Anyway, I'm just trying to think this through. It's most unusual. So this is my janky session manager that gets this far, and it's once Ludo gets invoked that it doesn't like the full KMS driver. I wonder why not. So this is all good. Let's press escape, and we're bombed out to the display manager again, and nothing. I mean, the audio's working. And can I log in? Let's use the right keyboard. Okay, let's just try a quick and dirty hack. Wrong screen entirely. So let's it's the wrong password, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. Let's just change the greeter and make sure we're not running into bugs in the greeter. They're not removed. Why can't it find that? That's even more peculiar. We'll just try the regular GTK greeter, in which case, if this is non-discoverable, that doesn't make any sense either. This is... I know I use this in Ubuntu Mate, so why would it not be available? There we go. That was the issue. We didn't have an up-to-date package index. Of course we didn't. It's a clean image. Right. There we go. Good. Ooh, okay, that's a lot of stuff. Fine. Do it. Let's just see what we get. There's quite a lot of stuff, actually. That's a surprising amount of stuff. I mean, I'm expecting it to pull in the Ayatana indicators. Okay, a bunch of Mate stuff because it needs Marco. That's reasonable. Anything I wouldn't expect it to pull in. No, it's just... yeah, we don't. This is one of the reasons why I wasn't using Mate, because I was able to keep this trim by, or rather, using Slick Greeter, but this is experimentation at this point. Let's see what happens. Oh gosh, it's brought in Network Manager. Okay, well, we'll just ignore the fact that that's going to break some things, but never mind. Come on, come on. I think I might have to start using the SSD or the USB sticks on this, speed things up quite considerably. One of the reasons I'm using the SD cards is because it's worst case. So whatever I can do to improve the performance means that it just gets better with better storage medium underneath it. Right then, let's purge that now. Make sure that any config that may have left behind is gone. Okay, good. And don't think this is going to work either, but yeah, I've broken it completely now. Because we've just pulled out the thing beneath it. So let's just do a... In fact, we'll do that and then we'll give it a hard restart. Oh, it's actually worked this time. Oh, that's interesting. So I wonder if pulling in Arctica Greeter has pulled in something else that was important there that's actually going to mean this starts working. So we will have to investigate that in just a moment. Let's see what happens. Hey Dust, how you doing? Good to see you. Okay. What do we reckon? I think there's a 50-50 chance that this might not be completely busted now. Yeah, doing fine. Had a good weekend, you know. Just going to see if we can make some forward progress with this not being completely broken. So let's see if we get our display, a functioning display manager now. Or at least a semi-functioning display manager. So this one can see that there is a Ludo session. Can I log into it with the right keyboard? I probably can. Let's try that again. No. Okay. So clearly something's changed. So I'm going to need to do some investigation on what has changed with the way the display manager should be configured. I'll be honest, I really don't know what that could be. And then let's try logging in like an animal with Ludo and the password, and that doesn't work either. So how very curious. So that's for me to figure out. I will have to debug that. So looks like, actually, if we just go back, it looks like I've got some to-dos that I need to draw up here. So first is, we still need to do that. Get the full KMS driver. Update that. We actually need to get the, fix the display manager. And Flashback. So we need to get that working. Then we can move on to that. Then we can do that. Then we can do that. Then we can do that. And then this is all gravy. So there we go. That's what it looks like. So this is going to be some investigation. So today is Monday. So I will be streaming again on Wednesday. And we will pick up on this and they get a bit further. So Kebab Impaler, just lurking, saw the cursor fireworks. You like that, do you? This is called, oops, if I just go to the right screen. This is called, is on the wrong virtual display. This is called Power Mode, and you can get an extension for Visual Studio Code. So yeah, you good fun. Just fancies things up a little bit of frippery. So let's have a look over here and see what's doing. I'm having a little look at see who's streaming today. Seeing if there's anyone. If anyone's got any okay, that's not in English. I don't have a problem with going to other channels in different languages, but I did do this to a Portuguese channel once, and I felt terrible about it because I felt like I disrupted their stream and they had to switch to English for a period. So I try to stick with the common language so that I don't derail somebody's stream. Oh, that could be interesting. LOL event manager. Oh, that's me. I'm looking for something that's sort of similar in nature, but mostly game development, it looks like, at this time of day. Yeah, and it's that same Portuguese, and they were super cool about it, and they've popped in here a couple of times since. But I tell you what, let's go over there. Let's go over there, and I'll just say, you know, hello, it's us. So we will hop in. They do speak English, but if they're not prepared to switch to English altogether, then you know. But they do interesting stuff, and they're doing Rust programming today. So let's go and give them a raid. So thank you very much for stopping by, everyone. I'll be back on Wednesday, and we'll pick this up and see if we can't actually get the thing working properly. So that'll be fun. And let's go raiding. I'll see you in a couple of days. Bye for now.